Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerers Guild as well as online at thesorcerersguild.com. Today on Magical Theory, we are going to be discussing prophecy. So now what is prophecy? Prophecy, at its base art, is divination cast in the long term. And is also often portrayed for an event rather than for an individual. For example, when we are reading cards, very rarely are we reaching into the future. When we are reading cards or runes, we are actually asking for advice on a situation and sometimes reaching into the immediate future. And this is an area where it is easy to read because time is like a weaving of threads. Yeah, the way existence comes into reality and the way a moment manifests can very easily be conceived as a weaving of threads. And there are certain patterns that evolve, and as these threads come together, it is easily predicted what the next knot in that pattern will be. It is much harder to predict when we reach farther out, because there's a lot of hidden variables, unknown patterns that are being woven way out here in the ether that will affect that moment that are not affecting the threads around you now. And as I said, when we do prophecy, we are often not focusing on one individual, one small thread, one small piece of the pattern, but a larger weaving of the tapestry itself. So, in order to be prophetic, we must reach beyond the normal means of divination and divine these fated moments. In a previous video, I talked about the idea of fate. And when we are dealing with prophecy, this is very much a part of fate. Now, to me, the fact that free will exists proves fate. Yeah? I know that seems counterintuitive, but these are two ends of a spectrum. As I said in that video, there is our free will, but when we follow our free will, when we do the things that we choose to do, that is keeping us within our fate. As long as we behave within our own nature, then we are behaving within our fate. And when we behave within our fate, there are certain things that are our doom. Now, this isn't a negative word in this concept, yeah? Your doom is those things that are extremely likely to occur because of the patterns and cycles of your life and the patterns and cycles around you. For example, it was my doom to become a sorcerer because of the way that I was born, how I was born, my surroundings, and my free will and the desires that I have. It was part of my doom that I would follow the path that I am currently on by following my own free will. So the one proves the other in many ways. And when we are going out for prophecy, what we are trying to determine is the doom of time, of an event, how things will occur in the future. So in order to do that, we need to be able to look at the cycles of what has come before. Because, as I said, time is a tapestry being woven. And patterns repeat, yeah? There are cycles in existence. It's like in one of my previous videos at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I mentioned how in the 1920s, in the 1820s, and so forth, there were pandemics then as well. And so I kind of knew that some kind of a pandemic would be coming simply because of the cycle. Now, is that prophecy? I don't know if that's really prophecy, but simply an observance of cycles. But it's an example of what we're talking about. Now, as I said, there's a lot of hidden variables inherent in divination. And that's still there with prophecy. Especially with these ancient prophecies, yeah? Or else people wouldn't go out of their way to try and fulfill these prophecies. No prophecy is set in stone. That would make the story really boring if it is guaranteed to happen exactly as this has been set. It's been set in stone and this is exactly what will happen. Well, then why does anyone try to make prophecies come about? Yeah? And that is where we get into the idea of prophets. Now, for me, I hear the word prophet, and I immediately put in the FIT. Because most of the time when someone says they are prophesizing, there is a profit in it for them. Yeah? There is profit to be made by telling you these things. And that's why we get a lot of these people predicting the end of the world, because they get all these people following, all these people listening to them. I mean, how much money do cults make, right? It's one of the most lucrative business practices out there in a lot of ways. And that's from prophecy. The idea of getting people to believe that you are a prophet. And so there's a lot of trickery involved with this. Once you hear someone start saying they're a prophet, well, that's a red flag that this person is probably either lying to you or themselves. Because as I said, nothing is set in stone. That being said, prophecy is possible, yeah, with certain cycles. Now, we have to, I mentioned the idea of taking actions to get prophecies to come true. And that's where a lot of your prophecies that do come true happen. Yeah, as someone makes a prophecy and it becomes self-fulfilling. And we work towards that end. Or we're so afraid of that end that we wind up accidentally causing it. Either way, all prophecies that come true must be self-fulfilling in some ways, in that there will be people that go out of their way to complete these prophecies and even use trickery and perhaps sleight of hand to convince you that these prophecies are coming true. Now, last week, the only thing that I posted was a video of me playing my flute, and I entitled that video, Prophecies in Orbit. Now, it's one of the things that we want to talk about here, is the idea that prophets can use trickery and sleight of hand to cause things to occur. Now, there was a reason I ended a prophecy's orbit, because there were the orbs there. And so I want to do a demonstration here. Now, I have something behind me that I'm going to smack into, and I will prophesize that we will start seeing orbs. And what orbs are, for the most part, yeah? And this is that video is one of the few times that I've intentionally used trickery. I just want to say that, is that I manifested those orbs by banging on my particles on there that go floating up and will cause this manifestation of orbs as those small particles hit the light. In fact, I have my phone playing in the background so that, because it picks them up better than this camera does. Now, I wasn't intending to make anybody feel foolish with that. What I'm pointing out here is the idea that these things can be manifested through trickery. Yeah? The idea that orbs, well, also I just wanted to demonstrate what orbs are. They are just these small particles that float up and hit the light. Now, sometimes they do send and make interesting motions and interesting things happen with how these orbs behave, to the point that it's difficult to just dismiss them. And that's what I'm really getting at here with this idea of prophecy is, well, confirmation bias perhaps, but more than that is that we reach for these things, and once we start seeing them, it's hard to give them up. There's a little bit of truth mingled in with prophecy often, and that's what leads us forward to these things. There's a little bit of interesting phenomena with these orbs. The idea that, well, okay, so they're just floating particles, but why'd that one go clear over this way instead of this way with the rest of them with the air current? And you start catching yourself still watching these orbs even after you discover what they are, because, well, there might be something there. It's hard to let that go, yeah? And it's the same with prophecy. That's especially with these, like, Nostradamus. You got this guy that's making up all these different quatrains, yeah? And they have all these different words, and then after an event has occurred, we reach out and try to piece together the prophecy of how he predicted this. Yeah? And that's a lot like these orbs. That's reaching out to, well, maybe there's something there. I mean, some of these interpretations are quite interesting. I can't deny that, of this Nostradamus. But I can't deny that the motion of some of them orbs are interesting, even though I know how they were put out. I don't know. Maybe somebody is directing that particular piece of particle because it's easier to make it flow. I mean, there really is, in both cases, some possibility of an interesting phenomena there. But there's also obvious shenanigans going on at the same time. Now, like I said, I do want to say that that's the only time I've ever intentionally used trickery in my videos, besides the April 1st thing I did a couple years ago with the little green orb that I made look like I was eating. That was just a trick with the light and the way refraction works with a camera lens. This one is kind of the same thing. It's just a trick of the light catching on to small particles. There's also a video where my eyes light up, and it's pretty cool because just as I go, and it's when we're talking, I'm even talking about eyes, and that seeing with your eyes open. If you've seen the video, and I go like this, and my eyes just light up, man.
Well, and allow.
And that's actually because the person filming it kept the light directly onto my eyes that whole time, I think. Yeah? I don't know how to explain that one exactly. There was no intentional trickery there. And then, of course, in my tongues video, there's like, it starts raining as I start doing the one tongue riding. That one I really can't explain. I don't know. My dog starts barking. Maybe somebody was squirting her hose up on the roof, and that's why the dog starts barking at the same time. But it did start raining after that when I went outside and checked. So I don't know. That one, maybe just interesting timing. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. I just feel silly now that I've intentionally done a camera trick. No, it's not. Okay. I've brought up the idea of prophecy. So, I mean, at some point in that, I do have to bring up my own little prophecy. May 5th. Obviously, if I'm talking about prophecy, I'm going to have to bring up the idea of May 5th and this idea that I'm helping bring about the return of magic. And that's something else, that this fulfillment of prophecy, yeah? I was told something will occur in 10 years. I don't know what's going to occur. I don't even know if it's going to be significant. Yeah? I don't know if it's anything that anybody's even going to notice outside of us, or maybe even just outside of me. Maybe my memory becomes more cohesive of my past lives. Who knows? I don't know where that's going to go. But we're working towards it. Yeah? This isn't just something that I said, okay, this is going to happen. In that time, I have been slowly working towards that goal. And I've had you working with me on that, with the idea of building the bridges and the different dream work we have done with the S1 project. So, I suppose that's a prophecy that we're trying to fulfill. That there will be a larger opening of the veil on that day, and that magic will become at least a little bit easier. Yeah, that's the ultimate goal of what we're trying to fulfill with that prophecy anyways. Okay, so more on that in the future. If you have any questions about that, you can always go to thesorcerersguild.com and ask me questions there, or put that in the comments below. A few of you have had some trouble getting onto the website. If you use the contact link there, I will be able to help you with that. Anyways, that will be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.